The Amber Alert came to the phone. 7-year-old Emma Johnson missing. Last seen at Millfield Public Library. Police cars arrived, K-9 units, even the FBI was called. But 3 hours had passed and there was no trace. At that moment, the library's quietest volunteer stepped forward and said, "I can find her." Nobody knew that he had been an FBI missing person profiling expert for 25 years. Welcome to Echo Stories. Before we begin this powerful story, tell us in the comments which city you're watching from, and if you believe stories like this need to be heard, hit that subscribe button to support our channel. Millfield, Ohio, a small Midwest town with a population of 15,000. The Millfield Public Library on Main Street was like the heart of the town. Children would come here after school, do their homework, listen to stories, and play. One of the volunteers working at the library was Frank Harrison, 72 years old, retired. He came every Tuesday and Thursday. He was a quiet, humble man. He organized books, helped children, never made noise. Everyone who had known Frank for 8 years loved and respected him, but nobody knew his past. He would say, "Retired government employee," about himself. He wouldn't give more details. The children called him Mr. Frank. He was always calm, always kind. He didn't talk much with them, but he listened. Which child was happy? Which child was sad? Which child was troubled? He noticed them all. This Tuesday was like any other. At 2 p.m., Frank arrived, quietly started working. He was organizing books in the children's section. At 3:30 p.m., 7-year-old Emma Johnson came to the library with her mother, Sarah. Emma was in 2nd grade and loved reading books, especially fairy tales. "Mommy, can I look at the princess books?" Emma asked. "Of course, honey. I'll be right here checking out these books," Sarah replied. Emma ran to the children's section. Frank saw her and smiled. Emma was a regular, coming 2 to 3 times a week. "Hi, Mr. Frank." Emma waved. "Hello, Emma. Looking for princess stories again?" "Yes. Do you have any new ones?" Frank showed her a newly arrived Cinderella book. Emma took it joyfully and sat in the reading nook in the corner. Sarah was in the adult fiction section, choosing books. The library wasn't busy. It was a normal afternoon. Frank continued working, but kept Emma in his peripheral vision. Old habit, always monitor children. At 4:15 p.m., Sarah came to get Emma. "Emma, honey, time to go." No answer. The reading nook was empty. "Emma?" Sarah called a bit louder. Frank approached. "Is everything okay?" "I can't find Emma. She was just here reading." Frank immediately became alert. "When did you last see her?" "Maybe 10 minutes ago." "I was just getting these books." Frank did a mental calculation. 10 minutes was too long for a small child to disappear. "Let's check the bathroom first," Frank suggested, maintaining his calm. They checked the girls' bathroom. Empty. They also checked the boys' bathroom. Empty again. Sarah started to panic. "Emma! Emma!" Frank found Janet, the children's librarian. "We have a missing child. 7-year-old Emma Johnson. Alert staff. Check all exits." Janet immediately took action. Library staff began searching the building. Sarah called 911. "My daughter is missing. She was at the library and now I can't find her." Within 10 minutes, the first police car arrived. Officer Martinez came and immediately assessed the situation. "How long has she been missing?" Officer Martinez asked. "About 20 minutes now," Sarah was crying. "Has anyone checked outside?" "We're checking everywhere," Janet replied. Frank quietly observed everything. Sarah's behavior, the staff's response, the reactions of people around. FBI training automatically kicked in. An hour passed. Emma couldn't be found. The police chief made a decision. Activate AMBER alert. Notifications came to phones. Amber Alert. Emma Johnson, age 7, last seen Millfield Public Library. Brown hair, blue eyes, wearing pink dress. 45 minutes later, an FBI agent arrived. Agent Lisa Chen, an experienced child abduction specialist. "I need to interview everyone who was here when the child disappeared," Agent Chen announced. Frank watched Agent Chen work. Professional, methodical, by the book. But Frank noticed something. She was following standard protocol, but wasn't reading the behavioral cues. 2 hours had passed. There were no leads. Sarah was completely distraught. "Where's my baby? Who's going to find her?" The police chief shook his head. "We have our best people on this, ma'am." At that moment, Frank made a decision. It was time to approach. Frank approached Agent Chen. "Excuse me, Agent. Might I have a word?" Agent Chen looked up, slightly irritated. "I'm sorry, sir, but we're conducting an investigation. Please step back." "I understand, but I might be able to help with the child psychology and behavioral pattern analysis." Agent Chen frowned. "Are you law enforcement?" "Former FBI, 25 years. Behavioral Analysis Unit." Agent Chen stopped. "Former FBI? What's your name?" "Frank Harrison. I worked primarily on child abduction cases, 1985 to 2010. Agent Chen's expression changed. "Frank Harrison? Wait. Are you the Frank Harrison? The one who solved the Patterson case, the Riverside kidnappings?" Frank nodded modestly. "Among others." "Jesus, what are you doing here?" "I volunteer at this library, and right now I think I can help find Emma." Agent Chen immediately briefed Frank. "What do you think?" Frank examined Emma's last known location. He carefully inspected the reading nook. "Tell me about Emma's routine," Frank asked Sarah. She comes here twice a week, always goes to the same spot, reads princess books." "Is she shy or outgoing?" "Outgoing. She talks to everyone, too trusting sometimes." Frank nodded. "That's important. Did you notice anyone unusual in the library today?" Sarah thought, There was a man, older, maybe 50s. He was in the children's section earlier, but he didn't have any kids with him." Frank looked at Agent Chen. "Security cameras?" "We're reviewing them now." "Good. But cameras won't tell us psychology. Emma's an outgoing child who trusts easily. Someone approached her. Question is, was it random or targeted?" Frank approached systematically. "Agent Chen, I need you to canvass the neighborhood within a 3-block radius. Look for anyone who's been watching the library regularly." "How do you know it's someone local?" "Because Emma disappeared too quickly and quietly. This person knew her routine, knew the library layout, knew when to approach." Frank turned to Sarah. "Has Emma mentioned anyone new recently? Anyone who's been particularly friendly?" Sarah thought carefully. She did mention a nice man who helped her find a book last week. She said he knew a lot about princesses." Frank and Agent Chen made eye contact. "Did she describe him?" "Gray hair, glasses, very nice. She said he promised to show her a special princess book." Frank immediately knew. He's been grooming her, building trust over time. Frank began profiling. "Our subject is organized, patient. He studied Emma's patterns. He didn't snatch her randomly. He built a relationship first." "So where would he take her?" Agent Chen asked. "Somewhere he feels safe and in control. Probably not far. He wouldn't want to risk transportation with a potentially crying child." Frank walked around the library, observing exit points. He left through the back exit. Front exit too visible, too many people. Frank examined the back alley. "Agent Chen, check buildings within 2 blocks of here. Abandoned properties, storage units, anywhere he could take her without being seen." Frank noticed something others missed. Emma's favorite book was still at the reading nook, but it was closed and placed neatly. "Emma never closes books like this. She gets excited, leaves them open. Someone else closed this book." Frank examined the book carefully. Inside, stuck between pages, was a small piece of paper. "Look at this," Frank showed Agent Chen. "This is a receipt, hardware store, dated today, 3:47 p.m. That's after Emma disappeared," Agent Chen realized. Frank studied the receipt. Purchase of rope, duct tape, and a padlock. "This isn't random. He's been planning this." "The hardware store is 3 blocks away," Agent Chen noted. "He bought supplies after taking Emma. Means he has her stashed somewhere temporarily while he prepared." Frank did mental mapping. He needed somewhere close to the library, but isolated enough to prepare. Check abandoned buildings between here and the hardware store. Agent Chen coordinated with police units. Focus search on the industrial area between library and Morrison's hardware. Frank thought like the perpetrator. He's confident, but careful. He won't go too far from his comfort zone. Frank turned to library staff. Has anyone been asking about children's programs? Someone who seemed overly interested but didn't have kids? Janet remembered. Actually, yes. There was a man who came in several times asking about story time schedules. Said his granddaughter might join, but I never saw her. Describe him? Gray hair, glasses, maybe 50s, very polite. He seemed to know a lot about children's books. Frank and Agent Chen exchanged looks. A pattern was emerging. Frank's profiling was accurate. Police found Emma in an abandoned warehouse 4 blocks from the library. Suspect Robert Glenn, 54, former janitor with a history of child endangerment. Emma was unharmed but scared. The suspect hadn't hurt her yet. Frank's quick analysis and behavioral profiling prevented the worst-case scenario. The reunion scene was emotional. Sarah hugging Emma, crying with relief. Agent Chen approached Frank. Your analysis was spot on. How did you know? 25 years of studying predatory behavior. Patterns don't change even if I'm retired. Why didn't you tell anyone you were former FBI? Frank looked at children playing in the library because I wanted peace. No more cases, no more victims, just quiet retirement. But you saved Emma. Sometimes retirement has to wait. News spread quickly through Millfield. A local hero story emerged. Library staff were shocked. Frank was FBI? We had no idea. He just seemed like a nice retired man who loved books. Children's reaction was pure. Mr. Frank is a real hero. Sarah approached Frank privately. I don't know how to thank you. Just keep Emma safe. That's thanks enough. But you saved her life. Agent Chen and the police saved her life. I just helped with directions. The local newspaper wanted an interview. Frank declined. TV news wanted the story. Frank declined. I'm not a story, Frank said. I'm just someone who helped a little girl get home safely. Agent Chen's curiosity was piqued. Frank, why library volunteer work? After everything you've seen? Frank was thoughtful. Because here, children are safe. They read, they learn, they grow. After 25 years of seeing what humans can do to children, this is healing. You must have seen terrible things. The Patterson case you mentioned, 8-year-old boy missing for 6 days. We found him alive, but barely. That case, it changed me. How? Made me realize that prevention is better than rescue. If I can create safe spaces for children, maybe fewer of them get taken. Agent Chen understood. So you watch them here. Not watch, protect. There's a difference. The following week, Frank returned to the library as usual. Children gathered around him. Mr. Frank, you're famous. I'm not famous, I'm just Mr. Frank. Emma specifically sought him out. Thank you for finding me. Frank knelt down to her level. Emma, I want you to remember something. If anyone ever makes you feel uncomfortable or asks you to go somewhere without your mommy, you say no and you run. Okay? Okay, Mr. Frank. Library management approached Frank. We'd like to offer you a paid position, security consultant. Thank you, but no. I volunteer because I choose to be here, not because I have to be. But your expertise. My expertise is available when needed. But most days, I just want to organize books and watch children read safely. The local police chief visited Frank. Would you consider consulting on future cases? If children are involved, yes, but only if absolutely necessary. We could use someone with your experience. Chief, I solved hundreds of cases over 25 years. I've earned the right to read storybooks instead of case files. Agent Chen stayed in touch. Frank, I learned more in 4 hours with you than in 6 months of training. Experience is a harsh teacher, but children like Emma, they make it worthwhile. Frank continued teaching informally. Young officers would seek his advice on behavioral analysis. Most important lesson, Frank told them. Children don't lie about being scared. Always listen to them. 6 months later, Frank still volunteered at the library twice a week. Children still called him Mr. Frank, but now parents nodded respectfully when they saw him. Emma continued coming to the library. She and Frank had a special bond now, not because of what happened, but because of how he continued to protect her normalcy. "Mr. Frank," Emma asked one day, "are you really a secret agent?" Frank smiled. "I was never a secret agent. I was someone who helped find lost children. Now I'm someone who helps children find good books." "That's better," Emma decided. Frank agreed. Sitting in the quiet library, watching children read safely, was indeed better than chasing monsters. Sometimes protection looks like dramatic rescues. Sometimes it looks like quiet presence watching over innocence. Frank had done both. Now he chose the latter. And so, in a small Ohio town, it was once again proven how deceiving appearances can be. A man seen as a library volunteer was actually a child protection expert, but more importantly, that expert was now serving in a different way. Real protectors are like this. They put down their badges but never abandon their mission. They stop chasing monsters and instead create safe spaces. If this story meant something to you, share your thoughts in the comments. If you believe stories like this should continue to be told, support Echo Stories by subscribing. See you in the next video. And remember, that quiet volunteer at the library might be a guardian. Everyone has a story, and that story deserves respect.